Liftoff and the clock has started.
Hey everyone, I'm Tom June and welcome to UK Space News, a brand new channel covering everything to do with the UK space industry. As you may have heard from my accent, I'm Scottish. Now, normally, unless your name is Scott Manley, being Scottish and having an interest in spaceflight isn't normally something to write home about. The same with the UK as a whole, whose sole contributions have been the cancelled Black Arrow project, the Prospero satellite, and the development of high-test peroxide and kerosene as rocket propellants, going all the way up to 1971. But thankfully, this is 2022, and man, what an exciting time it is to be involved in the space industry in the UK. Being in Scotland, historically as well, we would normally have to watch rocket launches from afar. However, we have not one but two rocket companies based here in Skyrora and Orbex, as well as two launch sites based in Sutherland and in Shetland. A little bit more on those later on. But looking beyond Scotland, the other major player, of course, in the UK space industry is Virgin Galactic with its subsidiary Virgin Orbit, and they'll be looking to launch from Spaceport Cornwall. So with three major satellite companies and three spaceports in development, the future of the UK space industry is looking awesome. So with that, my aim is to bring you the latest and best news coming out of the UK for all things spaceflight on a regular basis. Hopefully, we'll also be able to dive into the history of the UK's involvement in rocket development in future videos. So, with that, let's look at what's been happening recently. So, what has been happening recently? Well, as of September the 28th, Astroscale opened its new Zeus satellite manufacturing and operations facilities at the Harwell Science and Innovation campus in Oxfordshire. Founded in 2013, Astroscale are developing innovative and scalable solutions for space debris removal. Their main aim is to increase the sustainability of space systems and mitigate the growing and hazardous buildup of debris in space. That might have been pulled from the corporate site, but effectively they're looking to do space cleanup operations. Something like this is highly needed as space becomes, more and more populated, particularly with low Earth orbit. I'm not looking at anyone, Elon, but there is a growing problem there that does need to be addressed. So hopefully Astroscale can continue to develop these solutions. They've recently received a UK Space Agency funding boost to the tune of about £1.7 million, or a couple of $1 million in American money, to keep developing its technology to remove defunct satellites from low Earth orbit. They class this as the latest mission phase of the Cleaning Outer Space mission through innovative capture. Yes, I had to read that. The acronym would be COSMIC. That's awesome. You always need a good acronym, and it looks like the UK is getting on that bandwagon. But effectively, they'll be looking to commence their operations in around about 2026. So it's a few years off, but hopefully their development can continue at a reasonable pace. We can stay on top of that, keep track of things, see how they are going. Very exciting times indeed. Along those lines as well, Satellite View, based out of London, the British Earth Observation Company, they are, as I quote from their website, set to become the world thermometer. Effectively, they are developing and hoping to launch thermal imaging systems into low Earth orbit. They have partnered with Viasat to carry this out. Really, this is all based on thermal imagery and analytics. The Satellite View have also signed a second SpaceX launch contract, so that will hopefully double their thermal imaging collection capacity. So between those two companies, Astroscale and Satellite Vu, the potential for ensuring the safety of low Earth orbit and Earth ground monitoring through thermal imagery is looking very bright indeed. But you all came here to discuss rockets and space hubs and what have you. So let's dive into that. So now moving on to the more outwardly exciting prospect of rocketry. And we of course turn to our big players, Virgin Orbit being the biggest one, them being an offshoot of Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic. Virgin Orbit are getting ready to deliver its first satellites through Virgin Orbit's Cosmic Girl plane. It's due to land in the UK at some point in October, possibly around about the 26th, 27th, with the first launch date available from Cornwall Spaceport based in Newquay around about the 29th of October. That's when the first launch window opens for them. However, as with everything, they still require to get the go-ahead. And they'll be looking to the Civil Aviation Authority for that go-ahead. Now, for those of you that don't know, the CAA are much like, their American equivalent. They have overall control of all UK-based space operations. They've not quite given that go-ahead yet, but it is anticipated to arrive within the next few weeks. So as we move into October, this is definitely going to be one to watch. Obviously, Virgin Orbit, their main aim is to launch a 70-foot long rocket packed full of satellites. The main ones will be to launch 2 CubeSats for the UK government. They will also have other payloads as part of a mission called the Prometheus 2. Prometheus 2 has been built by In-Space Missions Limited, which is based in Hampshire in England, with design by the Airbus Defence and Space programme. It's a collaboration between the Ministry of Defence and other international agencies such as Airbus, as well as the US National Reconnaissance Office. So I don't have more detail on what those satellites will be for, but given they have Ministry of Defence applications, you have to think that they will be some kind of ground monitoring systems or providing better coverage for military operations. So, as I mentioned, October the 29th is the date that we are looking at. That is when the first launch window opens. However, if that fails, into November will be their next window, and then if it gets pushed back into December, where they have a window as well. The Cornwall Spaceport is the spaceport in the UK that is the furthest along. They are just about ready to launch, and theoretically, as of right now, a launch probably could be carried off. But moving ahead, as I mentioned at the outset, Scotland, it's got 2 rocket companies. They are actively in development and production right now. I'm going to start with Orbex. Now, Orbex, they have been around since 2015, and they're headquartered in Forres, which is in Moray, sort of in the north centre, if you will, of Scotland. They aim to deliver their Orbex Prime rocket, which is a slightly smaller or almost miniature satellite carrying vehicle. They're aiming for a launch in early 2023, and development really is continuing at steady pace throughout this year and into October. Obviously, with their aim for 2023, things are really going to start to ramp up as we get deeper and deeper towards the end of 2022. The interesting thing about Orbex is that they have a 3D printed engine with a testing site in Denmark. So I'll be looking to get some footage from their engine tests going forward from here. They aim to carry payloads of up to about 180 kilograms. And again, I'll get into this as well, but they are different from other rocket companies in terms of the fact that they use bio-LPG as their main propellant for their first stage. Their first stage is also whilst 3D printed, it's driven by turbopumps. So how that's going to interact and how it's actually going to test, how it's going to work in practice rather than principle, is going to be really, really exciting to pay attention to. And that, of course, brings me to Skyrora, who are based in Edinburgh. Now, Skyrora are one of those companies that I've been following for a few years now, since they started launching miniature rockets, using really off-the-shelf amateur rocketry parts. But I think that they are more akin to our version of SpaceX. With every step, with every stage, they keep imagining bigger and better. And the more they do, the more exciting it becomes. It should note that they also have heavy investors, not just from the UK, but from all over the world. And they have a one Tim Peake on board in an advisory capacity. So really what they're doing and what they're going for is they're aiming big. With the Skyrora XL, their flagship rocket if you will, it's going to be a 3-stage medium satellite carrying rocket. Their aim is to place satellites and other payloads into sun-synchronous orbits, but they have the capacity to go for polar orbits as well. That's going to be really exciting considering they are going to be launching from Scotland itself. Skyrora have funded and partnered with Saxavord up in Shetland. So I think we're going to see that as their main launch site from the UK. Obviously, there does exist the capacity to launch from anywhere because they have a mobile launching platform, much like we'll see with the Falcon 9, in the way that it acts as a transporter. It then lifts the rocket vertical, shoots it up into space, job done. So, continuing on with the excitement of Skyrora, the latest news coming out of them is that they have partnered with Nova Scotia, the local government over in Canada. They have signed a letter of intent and memorandum of understanding to bring launch vehicles to Spaceport Nova Scotia, with the aim to launch Skyrora XLs for them beginning next year. A really exciting development from a company that's based just an hour and a half down the road from me. The possibilities that they can launch not just from the UK but from Canada, and they already have a wealth of international partners lined up. Back in August of this year, they completed a successful test of their second stage engine called the Skyforce 2, and steady progress continues to be made on the whole rocket. So this really is one to stay tuned to. I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that in the coming months as we lead up to 2023, as they aim to launch the XL, we'll be able to bring you excellent, exciting coverage of that. And that brings us on to talking about space hubs. This is one of my favourite topics at the moment because, like I mentioned, the UK has 3 spaceport sites. I've already talked about Spaceport Cornwall, which is the furthest along. But the fact of the matter is, there are 2 spaceports being developed right here in Scotland. The first one is going to be based in an area to the far north called Sutherland. To put it in context, it is about a 5-hour drive from where I am at the moment, which might not sound like much, but considering the roads have more S-bends in them than the letter S itself, it's a bit of a journey. The Sutherland area, it's not too far from Caithness, and the main town that's closest to it is a town called Tongue. So check it out on the map. The development there continues. They've been working on it for a few years. However, there have been recent spanners thrown into the works for development on that. The area of Sutherland and Caithness is historic peatland, and a group have decided to submit an application due for 2023 to designate the historic Caithness and Sutherland peatlands as a World Heritage Site. So a little bit of a problem there. You can't build a spaceport on a World Heritage Site. You know, it was looking like everything would get the go-ahead for late 2022 for the Sutherland Space Hub. But I think this one, as is typical in the UK, they don't just go, no, you're standing in the way of development here. They will carefully consider the application for that. So we could actually be looking at delays of many, many months, forcing it back. My guess would be to late 2023. We'll need to stay tuned on that one and see how it goes and how it plays out. But hopefully, fingers crossed, all goes well and they can start laying some concrete down and we can see some rocket launches close to home. Now, the other spaceports that I mentioned in Scotland, it's actually based up in Shetland at a site called Saxavord. From my understanding, Saxavord is an old RAF site. But the good thing about Shetland, the thing you have to understand about Shetland, is it's a collection of smaller islands, and they're all pretty much flat. Okay? They're in the middle of the North Atlantic, and they're flat. All you need to do is build a site on it. And thankfully for us here, the team at Saxavord have partnered with Skyrora, as I previously mentioned, and work is underway as we speak. They have built the roads, and they're starting to kind of lay, you know, the concrete for the hub itself. Soon enough, we'll start to see the other remaining pieces of infrastructure go in, and you know, as far as late 2022 goes, depending on how quickly they manage to do it, given that Shetland is rather susceptible to the weather with a lack of trees, we could see some activity before Christmas 2022. That would just be fantastic. You know, the main launch that we're looking out for here is the UK Space Agency's UK Pathfinder launch, which will be delivered by Lockheed Martin and ABL Systems. They are looking to launch sort of microsats into sun-synchronous polar and high-inclination orbits. They are capable at that site of launching things up to 1.5 tons. So yes, they're doing micro satellite launches, but they have the capability to launch so much more. So, as of late September, early October 2022, that brings us right up to date. It really is an exciting time to be, not just in Scotland, but anywhere in the UK. There are so many more companies that, as of this video, I just don't have the time to even mention. You know, we've mentioned the big players, the space hubs, the rockets, but there are so many service and fabrication companies out there that have a deep, deep history in terms of other space agencies around the world. They have the knowledge, they have the experience, not to mention the fact the most recent dealings with the European Space Agency. It really is a time where, for all their maybe failings, and this is by no means a political channel, but the governments, you know, in the past sort of 20 years have never really seemed that interested in space. Until now. I think, to be honest with you, the creation of the UK Space Agency has really helped things along, and I can only hope that from here it's going to get bigger, it's going to get better, we're going to see rocket launches on home soil, and quite frankly, there is so much to keep up with that that's why I'm here. My name's Tom June, and I'll see you next time for more UK Space News. Hi, my name's Tom June and I'm presenting UK Space News. Don't forget, if you like this video, to tick that thumb, hit that subscribe. I'm really looking to grow this channel. I'm looking to use it not just as a news site and resource, but also an education resource. As I mentioned in my main video there, I am looking to do deeper dives into the history of the UK's attempts to send things to space. So any support that you guys out there can give this channel would mean the world, and it would go a long, long way to helping grow. Come and grow with me. Let's do it together. Thank you for watching.